Hey, welcome back to Chiro Philosophy Mixtape. This is your host, Dr. James Hopkins, aka Doc Hops, and I'm a licensed chiropractor. And welcome back to my channel. And so, this will be part 6 of the Aimee Esther series. Chronically ill influencer gets worse after upper neck adjustment. And this is the finale, y'all. Part 6, baby. Let's go. It's crunch time. We left off on part 5.2, where Aimee was super frustrated and just tired of, all the time and money spent on going to this upper cervical chiropractor and, not getting better, where she had only held her adjustment for 1 month in June, but now we're already in month 9 of September, where she's still experiencing crazy migraines and crazy symptoms, and still not able to hold her adjustments either. And so I left off on, asking, should she stick around and, you know, see if she can get some relief from this doc, or should she, take that cervical ligament intervention referral and see about that, or should she just find another chiropractor, you know, or should she, try something totally different, so that's where we're at in the series. And so for the finale, we're gonna see what Aimee decided to do with her care. That's where we're gonna start. But before we go into part 6, I had to do this and tell you what I'm rocking. I haven't done it in a while, I had to come out with the gold gauges to match the mic for the finale. You know what I'm saying? And cap I'm wearing, it's from a clothing brand called Franco Shade that's actually now defunct. That was it was started with the help of legendary, iconic, extremely talented, and amazing rollerblader, inline skater Arlo Eisenberg. He was a part of this clothing company uh, in the 2000s era. And if you know rollerblading, in the 90s, he was a part of the Senate company, the inline rollerblading inline company, controversial brand named Senate, that they released the skate videos, the hoax, and all that good stuff, and very controversial, and ahead of the curve for that time. And this is before Jackass. This is before all the MTV stuff, and Eminem, Shock Value. This is before all that. So they were doing the whole skaters, punk, satire, mixed with hip hop, all that stuff in the 90s. So that's what Arlo Eisenberg was part of. And he eventually started with the Franco Shade clothing brand. And then after that, he went separate ways from his partner with that, and started a clothing company called Ghost Brand in the inline skating space, spelled GOST with the Superman dollar sign. And this hat, Franco Shade, it's pretty cool. It's got a boombox stitched in with Franco Shade stitched in there, and they made the eyelets look like speakers, so it looks pretty cool. I copped this and a Ghost brand hoodie, zip up hoodie that was like stone washed, and it had the Superman Ghost logo on there. And man, I left that thing at my pop's house, at my pop and stepmom's house in 2019 during Thanksgiving, and I haven't went back and gotten it. So I gotta go back and get it, pops. Where's my hoodie at, pops? I need that back. All right, and so yeah, I had bought that and this, I believe, and this scribe beanie right there. Scribe is also a defunct skating brand that sold rollerblade that sold inline wheels. It was a wheel company, and I can't remember the year that they closed up shop, but they're not around anymore either. And I caught the beanie, and that Ghost brand hoodie from Aggressive Mall. It's a skate shop out in the Bay in California. That actually closed down as well a while ago. But yeah, man, I think I got a good deal from like a holiday season deal back in 2011. I still remember that. And yeah, so that's some, inline skating, you know, clothing history. You know what I'm saying? If you into that, yeah, that's what it's from. And I'm glad I kept these relics because they're rare. You're not gonna find them much in many other places. So yeah, see, I'm also rocking the Arizona jeans denim button up here with the Arizona jeans V-neck under. Shout out to JCPenney. I'm telling you, gotta hit up JCPenney. And I got the J Farrar vest as well, tan vest. You know, reminiscent of introspective Tupac, Me Against the World era. You know what I'm saying? I had to throw that on too. So yeah. Oh, and I'm also rocking my G-Shock that my pops and stepmom got me for my chiropractic school graduation gift. And so yeah, I had to throw that on too. So shout outs. And so yeah, that's what I'm rocking. And let's get into part 6 in the Aimee Esther series and see where she at now. All right, peace. Holla.
He said most of his patients within a few months, they're holding pretty well, and it's only, once or twice a year they have to come in and get adjusted. That did not happen for me, unfortunately. Mine would go out so often, sometimes weekly, sometimes it would go 2 weeks, and that was like a long time for me. And this happened for 2 years. Every time my correction would go out, I would get the worst migraine. And it was very annoying because my chiropractor was an hour away from my house, so that meant an hour there, an hour back. I also at the time had 2 young kids. Every time I got corrected, I had to wait 24 hours to lift my kids because it was more likely to go out in those first 24 hours. And it was so frustrating because then a week or 2 later, it would go out again, and I just have to go back and start the whole process, have someone drive me there, have someone watch my kids. It would be pretty much a 3-hour thing every time. So gas and the time was annoying, but also it just got so dang expensive. And I started to get so frustrated. But when it stayed in, it helped. And when it stayed in, I felt better. And when it stayed in, I stopped getting migraines. And I knew it was working. And so I would flip-flop between just wanting to give up on it, but then knowing it's actually doing something. And so I'd keep going. I have multiple chiropractors in every city between here and my upper cervical chiropractor, but none of them do upper cervical. So I had to keep going out there.
All right, so welcome back. So this is Aimee about 2.5 years after her first upper cervical chiropractor experience, and after we seen her within her 9 months of care. And so yeah, she's talking about everything she went through up to this point, and what it takes for her to even get to this chiropractor, right? She said it takes like a total of 3 hours total because it's an hour from her house. So she also has to, drop off her kids and everything like that in between. And so So yeah, it's taking a lot of time, and she's saying how burdensome it has become, and it's also burning her pockets as well. And I think that stood out as well. She said she goes to multiple chiropractors in between as well, which is a real thing in chiropractic, where a patient may see multiple chiropractors for different things. It could even be from the chiropractor's recommendation to go see another chiropractor for something that they don't necessarily do in their office. Um, so I don't see anything wrong with that. Just as long as the patient is keeping all parties informed on what care they're receiving, and they can have their care co-managed appropriately. I think that's fair, but you also have patients that who uh, don't keep every chiropractor that they may be seeing aware of what the last chiropractor did uh, for their case and their spinal health, to where it could throw off the patient's nervous system, uh, because of the other parties not knowing what was done and when it was done. So I think it's fair. But everything has to be communicated through all parties. But I feel like Aimee is the type of patient that would do that. Keep that communication clear between all parties, and you have people that may want to go to this chiropractor for their upper neck, and then that chiropractor for soft tissue work, and then another chiropractor for who's good with extremities. So it makes sense, but it has to be documented, right? So as long as everybody's clear on what everybody does, because having too many cooks in the kitchen, can also cause problems. So yeah, that's where Aimee is now, and now she's gonna explain further where she is. So let's see what's up.
Finally, I found someone closer. She started a new practice. It was only about 30 minutes away from me, and my family and my husband's family live about 15, 20 minutes away from us. So it was on the way. I could drop the kids off and then go to my appointment. It worked out so much better. But then it was a whole new expense because I had to get new imaging. I was starting over with a new chiropractor, so that was a little stressful and overwhelming. And finally I decided to just do it. And I started with this new chiropractor, and it was the best decision for me. So this chiropractor did what's called the Blair method. And I don't get it. I do not understand how she does it. She literally is magic in my eyes, but she does it by hand. So instead of having tools and stuff, she somehow does it by hand. And my first upper cervical chiropractor would just adjust one side. So I think the idea was, even though my two bones were both going out, if you adjust one, it should fix the other. I think that was the idea of how it worked. But with this chiropractor, she would adjust each bone individually and somehow do it by hand. Somehow I felt nothing when she would adjust me. It's seriously wild and blows my mind every time I go. But the first time I got adjusted at her clinic was so weird, because I did my first adjustment on one side, she flipped me over and did the other side, and I sat up, and the weirdest feeling, but my entire head went ice cold. Like, it felt like someone put an ice pack onto my skull, like underneath my skin. It's the weirdest feeling. It happens every time I get adjusted on that particular side. I don't know what it is. She said it's normal and that it happens a lot. Blood flow or something. I don't know. It is so weird.
Welcome back. So I guess that answers our question. She made a decision and left her original upper cervical chiropractor that practiced Alice orthogonal instrument technique, and found an upper cervical chiropractor that was 30 minutes closer to her house, and this upper cervical chiropractor practices Blair upper cervical technique. And so where they lay you on your side on this low level table, and they adjust your neck with a drop, with the headpiece, the drop piece. So that's why you don't feel anything after you get that adjustment, like Aimee was saying, because they use that drop piece when they adjust you, and it's by hand, and that's why I think it probably worked better for her, because that Blair adjustment is done by hand and it's more powerful with the use of gravity as well, and compared to the Atlas orthogonal sound wave instrument. And I feel like that's what Aimee's case needed more than the Atlas orthogonal, and I felt like she made it to the right place. And I can definitely relate, because that's what happened to me as well, where I transitioned from Atlas orthogonal care to Blair as well, because when I started chiropractic school, I transitioned my PIP, personal injury protection case, MVA, motor vehicle accident case, to Spartanburg as well, where my chiropractic school is, and Spartanburg, South Carolina, where I could not find an Atlas orthogonal chiropractor in the area. So I looked at the next best upper cervical office, and that's where I found Upper Cervical Chiropractic of Spartanburg. Shout out to Dr. Scott Baker and his team. And so, yeah, that's where I got my first Blair adjustment, where, just like she was saying, how she felt this ice cold feeling up her spine into her brain after her adjustment. I didn't feel that, but I definitely felt different after the Blair adjustment. Like I felt it more, like I felt like more euphoric afterwards. Like I felt a lot lighter, and they take you to a resting room so your nervous system can readjust after the adjustment. And yeah, I felt like I was on like cloud 9 in another universe, and I felt the difference immediately. And some people may not feel a different type of feel after the first Blair adjustment, but I certainly did, and so did Aimee here. And yeah, it's definitely a powerful adjustment. And so, yeah, so shout out to Dr. Scott Baker and his team there in Spartanburg, South Carolina, for introducing me to Blair Upper Cervical Chiropractic. And yeah, it's a great technique. And the cool thing about Blair is that they can adjust your top bone, C1, C2, C3, C4, and I believe C5, all separately with their hand adjustments, and on both sides. So depending on your case and your misalignment, that's how more versatile it is than Atlas orthogonal, and what they can do. So I felt like Aimee definitely went to the right place. So yeah, props to her for making that leap and finding a better place for her. And yeah, let's see what else she experienced there. All right.
But I feel nothing in the adjustment, and then I sit up, I'm dizzy, and my head goes ice cold. My adjustment did go out occasionally, about once a week, and I was still getting frustrated, like, okay, I just paid all this extra money to have new imaging, and now this place was actually more expensive than my original chiropractor per visit, and so I was like, okay, is this worth it? Is it gonna work? And I got a little stressed about it, because at first I was still having my correction go out a lot. And she reassured me that after about 3 months, everything should be good and I should be holding, which is what the other chiropractor said. And you know me, if there's an exception to the rule, it's me. Now, normally I'm not the norm, but this time it actually worked. It wasn't maybe 3 months. It was probably 6 months until mine was consistently holding, but I have not been adjusting since September. It is now January. September, October, November, December, January. So it's been 4 months since I got adjusted, which is wild. That's the longest I've ever gone, I think.
Hey, welcome back. So that was Aimee talking about how she started out under the Blair chiropractor and how, it took about 3 to 6 months for her to actually stabilize, to get her neck stabilized, and for her to hold her adjustments. And so that's great, right? And so just to rewind here on the timeline of everything. So on part 5.2, we left off on her 9th month of care with the Atlas orthogonal doc, where she continued with that care after September into October, November, December, and then into that second year into January and February. And then she switched to Blair that March of that second year. And like she said, it took about 6 months for her to stabilize. So March all the way to September of that second year is when she started to hold her adjustments under the Blair chiropractor, right? And so she said after that 6 months, so after September, she actually held her upper neck adjustments with the Blair chiropractor from September all the way to January of that third year. So she held for 4 straight months under Blair Upper Cervical. That's amazing, right? And going back to my case, I don't think I ever held for 4 months under Blair care. I think I did like at least 3 months straight withholding, and then I went out again. So yeah, that's amazing. So props to Aimee and her Blair chiropractor, and so yeah, that's just amazing. So let's call this the Blair Switch Project, right? So yeah, it's just going back to my whole point of this. Is like, okay, it's a logical fallacy to say that, okay, it didn't work out with this Atlas orthogonal upper cervical doc, so I'm never gonna go back to an upper cervical chiropractor because it didn't work for me. So luckily, she found another upper cervical chiropractor that did a different method that worked for her, right? So it's a logical fallacy to say, oh, I tried this one thing, it didn't work, I'm gonna try something else. Like, no, she actually found another upper neck doc that helped her, case. So it's not to say that Blair is better than Atlas orthogonal. It was just it just happened to be a better method for her case and her spine. And that's what we have to do in life, is find what's the best for us, because what's best for you may not be what's best for me. So that's what we have to do in life, and I feel like that's the perfect example of that. And so yeah, props to that whole journey and her getting through that and finding relief and holding her neck adjustments. That's amazing. And yeah, so I also want to get into the Blair upper cervical backgrounds a little bit, just to clear some more things up on the difference between that and Atlas orthogonal. So Blair upper cervical is an articular model of chiropractic that where they look at the specific joint in question, and they focus on that misalignment at the joint. And so that's where they start. And the Blair upper cervical guys look at asymmetry. They're saying that most of our spines are asymmetrical. Like our right side is more than likely different than our left side. And they've done their own research on different specimens and found this out. Blair, William H. Blair, the chiropractor who invented the Blair technique, had found that most of our spines are asymmetrical from the left to the right. And so so everybody is not textbook. So Alice orthogonal is an orthogonal model where they're trying to get your spine to 90 degrees, which is textbook and idealistic, but in reality, most of our spines aren't going to be 90 degrees when we get corrected. So most of the time when we get corrected, we're going to get corrected to our normal. So our normal might be 70 or 80 degrees, not 90 degrees. And that's just the reality of what our spines look like and function like and our structure like versus the ideal 90 degrees. So I think that's what's cool about Blair as well. And, you know, there's other articular models of upper cervical, like knee chest, upper cervical that's done by hand as well, versus Atlas orthogonal and Nuka that are focused on that 90 degree. And even there's Epic technique that uses both articular and orthogonal. It's like an evolution of that, and that's an instrument-based technique. And so they it's like a hybrid of both of those. So that makes sense. And so, yeah, with Blair, their whole purpose of adjusting is to achieve an unlockment. So they use a torque. So the torque, it makes much more force that is released and utilized than something like Alice orthogonal. And so with the torque, it's like a corkscrew-like action that they're applying to unlock the three-directional subluxation. So the X, Y, and Z vector that I was talking about with Alice orthogonal, with Blair, they're using that torque to knock out all three vectors at once with a quicker adjusted procedure with one continuous thrust. So the key with Blair is all in the torque when they adjust by hand. And so that's the difference between Blair and Alice orthogonal. And in Aimee's case, that was the best method for her counter-rotated Atlas and Axis, right? And like she said, the Blair chiropractor started her on one side and then flipped her over to her other side to cover that misalignment on that side as well, because that's most likely what she needed to her get to hold her adjustments, right? So if that makes sense, then cool. That's the difference between Blair and Alice orthogonal. That's what I wanted to cover. So yeah, let's finish and see what else Aimee has to say about, you know, her journey and this whole upper cervical chiropractic stuff. All right.
So migraine update, I still occasionally get headaches and migraines. I probably have a little headache almost every day at some point, but the migraines I used to get where I couldn't open my eyes, I was so nauseous. I even have gone to the ER before because my migraines were so bad, and I would get the migraine cocktail at the doctor's office and it still wouldn't help. And I would just be so freaking miserable with my migraines. I don't get those anymore. I still get the occasional migraine if maybe I didn't sleep well or maybe I didn't eat well or didn't have enough water. Like, those still come up. But it is so much better. It is so much more manageable. The migraines I get now, I have some caffeine, ibuprofen, Tylenol, and I'm good. I can handle it. I can take care of it. When before I could hardly function every time I got a migraine, and it just ruined everything, and I couldn't even take care of my kids. Well, I am just so excited to say that my corrections are finally holding. For me, I needed the Blair method. I know my first chiropractor has had so many success stories, so many people who it's worked for them. I, of course, as per usual with Aimee, Esther, and all of her health problems, I am the exception to the rule. I needed a little bit extra. I needed both sides adjusted. Surprise, surprise. I needed it done by hand. I needed it done a little bit different, but it worked for me. Now, I know my chiropractor told me before there's not a lot that do the Blair method. I think it's starting to become more common. You'll have to look it up in your area. And again, if you live near me, I'm happy to send you the information to the 2 chiropractors that I used. Just send me an email. It's linked below. My correction will still probably go out at some point if I lift something weird, or I don't know. Anything could happen. Could still go out. So I will still probably go every once in a while, but we are in maintenance mode now, which is so exciting. Anyway, my friends, if you live with chronic illness and you want to learn how to live the most amazing life when you live sick and in pain all the time, make sure you subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye, my friends.
Hey, welcome back. So yeah, that's it, y'all. That's the end of it. Roll credits. So yeah, that was Aimee concluding her experience with the Blair Upper Cervical Chiropractor and how she's doing. So now she's saying that, she's able to actually hold her corrections now. And yes, she still experiences migraines, but at a lesser degree, to where she's not having to go to the emergency room and it's not debilitating, and she can co-manage it at home and be just fine. And so that's great for her. And how she went to maintenance care. And so maintenance care is the second phase of chiropractic care. So the first phase is corrective care, and then the second phase is maintenance care, and then the third phase is wellness care. So corrective care may look like see you 3 times a week for about 1 to 3 months, and then drop down to like 2 times a week for however long, and then once a week for however long, and then you go into maintenance care, the second phase of care, which may look like 1 or 2 times a week for however long, and and then going into wellness care, which may look like I'll see you once every 2 weeks for however long, or once a month for however long, just depending on where you are in your care. And so yeah, hope that makes sense. And so hopefully by now Aimee is in wellness care. And so the further you get in the chiropractic care, the less you have to go. So that's another logical fallacy of, oh, I have to go to the chiropractor for the rest of my life. Well, if you want to live a better quality of life, you may want to keep going to your chiropractor. Just you don't have to go as much, if you're holding your adjustments and doing what you're supposed to do in the office and at home, right? So and that's the whole point of great chiropractic, is increasing your quality of life, so you can spend more time with your family and loved ones and not have to worry about some ailment that's keeping you from doing your day-to-day and living your life. And that's what the whole message is to increase your quality of life. And like I said, chiropractic is not a fix-all, and neither is Blair Upper Cervical Chiropractic or Atlas Orthogonal or any type of chiropractic. All chiropractic techniques work, but Blair Upper Cervical happened to be what Aimee needed with her case. And, with Atlas Orthogonal, it has its pros too, to where you may have a patient that has elongated styloid processes, which come down from the mastoid, like close to the jaw, which you can't really get hands-on adjustments with. But the Atlas Orthogonal instrument can slide on right by that and give you a solid adjustment, and you don't feel that, right? And so every chiropractic technique works. It just depends on what you're using it for, right? And so, yeah, so that's the end of my soapbox, and that's the end of the Aimee Esther series. Chronically influencer gets worse at the upper neck adjustment. That's it, y'all. I hope you enjoyed it and learned something, because I surely did. All right, so I hope you enjoy the rest of the year and enjoy the holidays, and go get your spine checked, by the end of the year, before New Year's, and I know we're in a crazy election year, so just stay sane and keep it together. Stay safe, y'all, and I'll see you on the next one. Doc Hobbs out. Ooh, we out of here. Peace.